The Expansion Zone with Sonia Barrett.
Everybody's talking about consciousness. Everybody wants that eternal kiss. Yeah, everyone's saying there's more than this. Everyone wants to follow their own bliss. Talking about one love, one blood, one life in everyone. One life, give each other. We are sisters and brothers. We sing Om.
On the Expansion Zone, we examine life and our quest to understand who and what we are and of the vastness of human potentials. We explore the making of our world from quantum physics to parapsychology, health, sociology, and philosophy, along with practical living. You are reminded of the possibilities in creating personal change. So for an hour, we'll stimulate and expand the mind.
Om Shanti, 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 Shanti. Sing the world. Let's do it together. Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. It's time to wake up. Shanti, Shanti, Shanti.
Well, welcome once again to the Expansion Zone with Sonia Barrett. I'm, of course, your host, Sonia Barrett. And thank you once again for joining me on this wonderful Monday. And thanks to Donna DeLore for our theme song, Be the Change. And Donna was really great with allowing me to use that song. And I know so many of you do love it. I really love the lyrics. And I always say whenever you have an opportunity to listen to the entire song, do so. Very, very well worthwhile. And so our quote for today, for Monday, is when a resolute young fellow steps up to the great bully, the world, and takes him boldly by the beard, he's often surprised to find it comes off in his hand, and that it was only tied on to scare away the timid adventurers. And that was by Ralph Waldo Emerson. So, of course, I like to comment on that a little bit. So I'll do that in just a moment. But before doing so, today's topic is going to be a map of archetypes to find lost purpose in a sea of meaninglessness. Now, our guest, it's actually part of the title of her book, but our guest is Beth Martens. She's the author of Journey, a map of archetypes to find lost purpose in a sea of meaninglessness. So, all right. So before getting into our dialogue with Beth, quick announcement. KPFK's upcoming fund drive is fast approaching. And with the current pandemic, as you all know, it has reduced KPFK's staff. Yet the bills must still be paid. The station relies on your continued support to meet those obligations. Of course, your support also helps to limit the length of the fund drives. Like all other hosts, I really do love hosting the Expansion Zone on Mondays at 1 p.m., but I am also aware that the engineers and a string of folks are required to be there to establish the broadcast of my show and all others. So I do ask you to please support the station and this show, of course, during the upcoming fund drive in October. And if you would like to begin with making a donation during this show, you may do so by calling 818-985-5735, and you may decide to become part of the Sustainer Circle. In other words, become a subscriber, just as we end up subscribing for all our prime channels or, networks, everything that we want to watch. So you become a subscriber to KPFK. So you can call 818-985-5735. And of course, again, I thank you for your continued support. Now, as far as the quote is concerned, when a resolute young fellow steps up to the great bully, the world, and takes him boldly by the beard, he's often surprised to find it comes off in his hand, and that it was only tied on to scare away the timid adventurers. Now, what does that remind me of? Well, don't be swallowed by fear. Sometimes we have to step right up to it and look it directly in the face, only to realize that we actually have so much more power over the fear than we thought. But if you don't look it in the face, then it will always be this force that has power over you. And, often this is all just a belief. And I think many of us can relate to that. There's so many things that we thought we were scared of in our lives, or a person or a situation. And you just said, you know what, I've just enough. And you step right up to the plate. And I think we are in times right now where you do have to get a grip on yourself. You do have to bring yourself back, and you do have to realize just how much power you do have, and what choices can I make to safeguard myself, my life, my health, my mind. All of those things, I think, is super important, that we begin to pull our power back. We begin to realize what we have. And I think today's conversation is definitely going to help to bring about that memory that you do have power, and perhaps what you can do from this point moving forward in your life in so many different ways. So, Beth Martens is, for business coach, archetype reader, author, and coach trainer, Beth Martens, her calling is a life or death thing. After a decade as a corporate VP in her family's firm, 8 trips to India, and a 3-year battle with cancer 20 years ago, she used archetypes to save her life. Today, she helps truth lovers find their sacred purpose, be valued for their life's work, and survive the ordeal of their hero's journey. As recovering feminist, she is passionate about hosting the King Hero's Journey podcast, highlighting leaders, entrepreneurs, movement makers, and purveyors of the truth. Her website is BethMartens, BethMartens.com. And of course, her new release book, Journey, is available on the website as well. So without further ado, Beth, welcome to the Expansion Zone. So good to have you here.
Thank you, Sonia. I'm totally honored to be here.
Yes. What a journey. Perfect name for the book.
Yeah, exactly. Now I feel like I own that word.
I know. It's like, we can't use that word unless we contact Beth.
Exactly. Yeah.
Trademark word journey. That's like trademarking love. You can't use the word love.
Yeah.
But, so, Beth, I just looking at the back of your book, I mean, where you say, it says, Beth Martens had it all. She was the young, successful vice president of a public relations company, also a talented musician and yoga instructor. She traveled 8 times to India to study. She was living the dream. Now, when I look at that, what I'd love is if you could just give us a glimpse of what you were feeling when you had it all. And when I say had it all, it had it all is the social dream, because where you were is sort of the social dream, the socially approved success story. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So it's like, at what point did you realize that you weren't happy? So if you can just paint a picture a little bit as to what that felt like when you had it all. Did you really feel like you had it all, or was it really the surface feeling?
Yeah, you nailed it, Sonia. It looked like I had it all. And so from the outside, everything was perfect. And it was hard to even complain to anybody about how I was feeling, because it was a total mismatch. And so I had the fancy job and all kinds of privileges as a result of that. We were behind the scenes with some amazing people. We hosted Lauren Bacall and the Duchess of York and Maya Angelou for talks. That's just one of the 20 different high-level speakers that we were producing events for. You know, I had the car, I had the house, I was able to travel.
You have the look going.
I had the look going, exactly. Got fancy clothes, and because it was my family's business, I was given the freedom. You know, this might not have been the case, but to travel to India every year and follow my passions on the side, which turned into a real double life. Mm-hmm. And I was hiding my spiritual side from my business life, and I was hiding my business life from my spiritual people. And it really created a big split in me where I just wanted to pursue my passions, but felt a lot of draw to be socially approved of, because in those days, you know, more than 20 years ago, the spiritual thing was not socially approved of. Now it is a bit of a different world where people have really come around. But in those days, I felt like I needed to do something that would gain my family's approval, society's approval, give me an income that people could recognize and respect.
You weren't a flake. We weren't flaky.
That's right.
That was how that was back then. It was a little bit, that person is a little, flaky.
Exactly. No, I was on the phone with a reporter at one point trying to pitch a story that was going on in my business or in our family's business. And he just said, you know what, Beth, I know what you're up to. And my heart sunk and I'm like, oh my God, I've been found out. And he actually was wanting to tell me that he really appreciated that side of what I was up to. So that was fun, just a little window into, maybe this isn't the hinge on social approval that I thought it was.
Yeah. So it sounds like earlier on you knew, but mm-hmm. It was, and I'm asking because of people that are listening and people who are living these double lives in this manner. Mm-hmm. In the very onset, did you know? Because there are many times when kids are sort of in a way forced into family business because they're feel obligated to. Did you always know that, and you just kind of played the game? And that's why I was saying at what point did you then decide it's time to step away? Was it the diagnosis? So if you can kind of take us down that path a little bit.
Yeah, I was genuinely interested in that business. I was interested in making money. I loved having independence around money. Neither of my sisters had any interest in that business whatsoever. And I think unconsciously I did thrive on being the one that would possibly help to carry all of that work forward and be something of a champion. Also, my parents had been through the recession in the 90s, and it really knocked them in a lot of ways. Plus the technological revolution was taking place, and that was throwing everybody in a tailspin. If you didn't grow with it, then you died, basically. And so I had interest. I love business. I love marketing. I might not have admitted to that for many years. I also demonized it, especially after I was diagnosed with cancer. But so the conflict was deeper than that. I was engaged with the things that I loved. That's again why it looks so perfect. And I was able to pursue the spiritual stuff that I was more interested and aligned with. But at the same time, I was not doing the work I was meant to be doing in the context, right? So it's not just the thing that you do, it's who you do it for. And so, it took me a long time. It took me the better part of a decade to realize that all of these clients that we had were really nameless, faceless corporations that had no soul, that didn't care about people, that were engaged in, for example, I was interviewing Kevin Annett this week, who is a champion for Aboriginal rights here in Canada and also for common law and speaking out now. He's created a number of assemblies in Canada where it's illegal, for example, to practice COVID regulations. He's making a lot of waves, also getting a lot of attacks. And it just became clear to me how the people that you're doing the thing for is really a big part of the sacred purpose, because in a vacuum, no one has that sacred purpose. Again, it's not just the motions you go through, the things you do. It is intimately tied with humanity. What is your role? What is your contribution? What is the place that you will feel a certain belonging in, even if it means that you are, outside of some circles, but getting into your circle and attracting your people, such as you have done and are doing, Sonia. It is a different life. And it did take that diagnosis, because I felt I did feel obligated to my family's business. I felt obligated to help them, to be a champion for the family and for all of that life's work that my parents had put their blood, sweat, and tears in to raise us. And I was banging my head against the shower wall every morning, wondering how I could get out of it, but really telling the Creator that I couldn't get out of it at the same time. And Creator went, "Oh man, I can help you with that, no problem. Here's a great big stage 4 lymphoma." And did I know I was sick? I did know. I could see the nickel and diming of my health over that decade. It was a little bit like a frog boiling in the water. That example goes around a lot. And so my health was slowly deteriorating. And I was also stressing myself out with the double life, working full time in 2 worlds at the same time. And then even the full time of business was sometimes these crazy 18-hour days, or, just total off the charts nonsense for absolutely no good reason. And that's why in the title of my book, I talk about that meaninglessness, that when you're doing something for no reason, it becomes a massive energy drain. Right. And so the diagnosis was a big U-turn for me. I didn't see it right away. I went into total crisis mode, had to walk away from my job. And to be more honest, I finally gave myself permission to walk away from that job. I thought, okay, now I finally have something big enough, and I'm not just being a hypochondriac that I thought I was being.
Yeah, but now it was validated that, oh, wait a second, there really is something to this. There is something going on in me, based on the truth of my own silent misery.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah, well said. Exactly. It's a deeper truth. The body doesn't lie, many people say. And so when you can't listen to the small signals of the mental anguish or the heartache, then it goes deeper into the system not to set you back or harm you. I'm always carrying this message. It really was the gift that I needed to bring awareness.
The message.
Yeah, that's right. Exactly. And the message is unstoppable. If you're meant to get a message, you're going to get it one way or the other.
Yeah. The key is, are you able to really recognize that this is a message? And I think this is where many people go off the rails, because I just actually had a coaching session. I was coaching someone who had gone through some surgeries, and they really felt, this was just yesterday as a matter of fact, and they really felt in a way beating themselves up, like, I thought I did all this work on myself, and then I still had to, and it was like, wait a second, how about we change that perception? What if your body says, look, I need some support. I really need, some assistance right now. And this is the way that we are going to have to do it to speed things up, to move things along. And that person in that moment just realized, like, she switched it. She took it from a negative to something else. So basically, and this is what you're also saying of the diagnosis that you got at the time, you were once able to eventually switch it to realize, oh, this is really a message and an opportunity.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm, exactly. Yeah, it's a beautiful switcheroo, right? That every crisis is an opportunity. And this whole situation with the, I hope you don't mind me saying, pandemic, is proof of that as well, that people will go different directions with this. Some of them will go deep into despair and depression and addiction, and that's always that's always an opportunity. It's always there as
Yeah.
what are you going to choose? Because we are here gifted with free will, and there's no getting out of that. So other people are going to see like, oh, wow, it is a time of great change. And for me, for example, there were 5 minutes when I thought, okay, Beth, just, put your head between your knees and, quit everything, prep, and kiss your ass goodbye.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And, and then so after the 5 minutes, I get up off the floor and I'm like, nah, nothing has ever really stopped me. Not even a life-threatening illness didn't stop me. I've had many challenges in my life. The hero's journey is full of a lot of real, takedowns, knock 'em downs, and deaths, actually, right? To call it in a really dramatic way. It's like you were, the beautiful quote that you shared at the beginning, that we are meant to face that beast. When you turn away and you run away from the beast of death, then it chases you. It's like pulling it into you. And that's what one of the major discoveries that I had in the process of trying to recover, right? Because there I was thinking I was doing everything right in a way, because I had lots of natural health training at that point, not formal training. I never did become the nutritionist or health coach or anything like that. I just had an interest for my own health. But I was losing my life anyway, despite doing everything, natural and eating well and the right water and good supplements and yoga and meditation and taking care of myself, despite the stress of the corporate life. And there I was, so sick, and I remained sick, and I got more sick. After the first diagnosis, I went into remission for a time, thanks to a near-death experience. Right, I was this I wrote about in detail in my book. When I truly faced my death, when I surrendered to it, I thought I was dying, and I thought, okay, I'm just going to let go. I'm going to stop running from death. And it was so powerful. First of all, it showed me who I actually am. When everything was lost, I had lost my house, I'd lost my car, I had moved into my parents' library. Most of my friends had vacated because they couldn't handle the intensity they couldn't look death in the face through my eyes. It was a major loss. And there I was with nothing, and not even a body worth speaking of. I could no longer sit up or use my hands or do anything for myself. And when I gave over to that, I saw that it was actually a big lie, that none of that, what I was talking about, was ever me. Not my status, not my money, nothing, right? It was all gone. And there I was, completely full, totally independent of any suffering, full of joy. And it was a real wow moment.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's a freedom.
Exactly. Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
It's where I saw that I had a sacred purpose, and that it was intimately tied with my people that I could sense, but that I had no idea. I didn't know them. I just knew they were there. I got the code of my sacred purpose. It didn't help me to, I've been spending the rest of the time since then decoding.
Right.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
But I got the code nonetheless. And I saw that I never needed to do anything really to fulfill myself again, because there I was completely full.
Right.
That experience sent me into remission. I was able to recover so much energy that I was free from disease for a short time. I proved it with a test. I told my doctors I needed a CT scan, which I shouldn't have got so many of. Now I know in retrospect, but
Right.
It proved that I had gone into remission. And 18 months later, I could not recover all of my health. I just couldn't come back from the months and months of chemotherapy and brutal treatments that I'd been through.
Right. Where your immune system just takes a beating.
Exactly. So there I was with a second diagnosis, and they considered at that point that I was not going to survive it, because statistically speaking, the second diagnosis of a Hodgkin's lymphoma is not survivable. So they threw the book at me at that point and said I only stood a chance to live by doing a stem cell transplant, which is a massive brutality. You go into isolation for the better part of a year. They give you so much chemotherapy, you almost die. That gives your stem cell transplants, your stem cells, it stimulates them to grow, and then they harvest them and give them back to you as soon as you're about to die. So it's this really beautiful, and then you can't see anybody, and you have no immune system whatsoever. You live in a bubble. And my ex-brother-in-law died that exact way, although I didn't. That was many years in the to be in the future. But it sent me into such a deep soul searching that I realized that trying to save my body at all cost really wasn't the answer. And I'm not for sure if you're familiar, Sonia, but I was led to the work of Carolyn Miss, who I'd been following and reading all of her books through my journey. And then she published The Sacred Contracts.
Right.
That when I got my hands on that book, I didn't even know what it was, but I somehow felt like it held the keys to my future and this decision that I was trying to make. And I dove into archetype work that I had only studied about intellectually in university some years ago, which I was glad I had, because I had a frame of reference for Carl Jung's work and the cross-cultural nature of archetypes, how they are the same. It doesn't matter where you go in the world. They maintain their integrity. And very quickly I saw how I had been through a particular archetype. The name is the rebel. I also call that the mermaid. You said merpreneur earlier. That's where that comes from. Maybe a different interview to dive more into that. But I was in the seeing of the dark shadow that I was in with this rebel. I was able to recover enough energy to awaken that shadow. And I went from being a dying person to being a living person practically overnight, because I got all my life energy back from the unconscious. And that energy, I didn't know it at the time, but it knows how to heal from cancer or anything. I don't know. I still don't know how to heal from cancer. I've got lots of ideas and tricks up my sleeve. But frankly, until I turned the corner in that archetype, I was still a dying person, doing all the right things, all these good things.
Wow, it's it really is something else, because we do have this built-in system. We just need to know how to work with it. And we do need to go to break, but I do want to say a couple of things around some of the things that you've said, just to throw my point in. I remember there's two things I could share, but I'm going to share this one really quickly. But I remember going through a major heartbreak some years ago. I mean, it was just devastating. And I could feel every day like my life force was being drained. And when they say people die of a broken heart, they do. It's very possible. Mm-hmm. And because we're a power plant is what you're saying. We're powering up our whole life, everything, our thoughts, everything.
I love that.
Yeah. And so basically I was being drained. And then one day I said to myself, there is nobody on this planet that is worth me losing my life force over. Not like this. And in that moment is when I started to renew, and it's just what you said. I started to pull my power started to come back from how infused it was in my heartbreak, in my fear, and in all the things that you just said. Your power was all dispersed into all these things, and it starts to come back. So I want to pick up when we come back from break and talk about more about these archetypes and your, what it is that you do and people working with you, because there's so much we could talk about. But stay tuned, everybody. We will be right back after this brief break. And we are back. We are coming to you from KPFK 90.7 FM in Southern California, and we are streaming live at kpfk.org. You are, of course, tuned into the Expansion Zone with Sonia Barrett. That is me, and we are speaking with my guest, Beth Martens, and we are really discussing her life, her book, her journey, a map of archetypes to find lost purpose in a sea of meaninglessness. And this is such a powerful conversation. But before going further into that, let me also remind you that the fund drive is coming up in October. And if you would like to get started early by making a donation during the show, you may do so by calling 818-985-5735. And you can become a part of the Sustainer Circle, basically become a subscriber to KPFK. 818-985-5735. And of course, again, we thank you for your continued support. So, Beth, can we dive a little bit into these archetypes, just so people can connect more with what we're talking and what we're referencing?
Absolutely. So archetypes, it's a word that it was popularized, if you can call it that, although even today there are people that maybe heard the word but they don't really know what that is. And so I love to simplify it for people right out of the gate. And to me, and this is all from inner work. I really have very little interest in going out and studying people who study about the psyche. In fact, Carl Jung was a great example. I don't agree with everything he says at all. It would be a very interesting conversation if he was alive today. But I also do credit him for, he was, one of the few practitioners out there that would do the work on himself. He was not just in the ivory coat sitting back and looking at stuff and looking at patients and getting patients to go through ordeals. He went through them himself. He was the recipient of amazing visions and dreams, and horrific visions and dreams, actually, especially to be predicting the war that was coming up. And so that inner work for me have brought me to study very carefully, because I was able to recognize the existence of archetypes, but I couldn't necessarily, I could say the name of some archetypes and I could give characteristics of those archetypes, but I didn't know what they were. And there were days when the study goes on, and it's to this moment and to this day, but there were times where I might have called them something more like an entity, that they're, some kind of energy, and you need to call on them, and then they come and they help you, or they show up as your enemy because you're in resistance to them or pushing them away or disowning them. Now I see it much more clearly, and I will tell people right away, never call on anything but the creator. I think that's going to get you into some trouble. It opens doors for all the wrong things to come to. Now, archetypes, I think on their own, they have no life of their own. They have your life. They have the light of God coming through you. So I see them kind of like a lens or a blueprint that is showing the order of the universe. So the same way that a blueprint will show you the order of the house before it has existed, then the archetypes are the same. So they are representing what's in potential, both in two expressions. This is the interesting part about an archetype, is that when it is in the unconscious, it has a certain very predictable kind of patterned behavior, each one individually of the archetypes. When it is in the consciousness, when you're aware of it, then it becomes like a superpower, and something that in both cases connects you to collective consciousness, and therefore a great deal of power. You said how much power you have. And this is a way to see your power and to be extremely specific about what your gifts and the shadows are, so that, when you suppress anything, any important part of yourself. So, for me, getting that socially approved life was really putting a foot on the head of my rebel, right? So when I was growing up, in fact, my first word I often tell people was no, right? I knew that things were not right. And I was the one, everybody knows it somewhere, but I was the one who was willing to point it out and to be a pain in everybody's neck that way. And just like, oh, this doesn't make sense, and that doesn't make sense, and this doesn't make sense. And they're like, shut up, You know, that's annoying. You're making us all uncomfortable because we all do know it somewhere. And so I got into a lot of trouble. I write about it extensively in my book that, you know, I was a teenage runaway. I got into all kinds of craziness. I stole a car. I was, you know, a totally a wayward teenager. I almost died off the back of a motorcycle. And so, you know, I spent a night in jail, and there was all the, I ended up being put in a, I wasn't locked away in an institution, but I was made to go to an institution every day instead of school, and they were trying to figure out what was wrong with me. And then this moment came in my life where I decided, okay, that's it. I'm not going to be this heavy rebel anymore. I'm going to pretend that part of me doesn't exist. I mean, I couldn't even have had that conscious thought, but that's what was going on in me unconsciously. And I went to school and I got straight A's and I studied like crazy and, you know, just did everything possible to gain the approval of my parents and society that I had lost so badly. And, you know, because when a rebel can't get good attention, they look for bad attention.
Any attention will do.
Any attention will do. We see it in children. It is a tragic situation. So I was really locked in that. When I turned it around, you think that would be the cure, but it wasn't. It just sent my rebel so deeply into the unconscious that instead of, you know, working for me as a superpower, it really worked against me, and to me was the basis of losing my life force, just as you're talking about. And yeah, that's a universal experience. When we go through something that is like a death, we have the choice to keep dying with it or to let that be the wake-up call, which obviously you have done. I can see that in your life. You've risen from that as a phoenix from that place. And then the archetypes become like a map. You know, we look out in the world and it's more exaggerated than ever these days, that it's just, you know, one bit of chaos after the next. You know, one day you got these mandates, the next day you got these mandates, you've got everything that makes no sense. Up is down. We're living the 1984, darn it. And so it's tempting to think that there is no order in the universe, and it couldn't be further from the truth. It is all ordered, intricately, beautifully, you know, magnificently ordered. And if you tap into that order, archetypes being one of the ways to do that, then you start to make sense of your world in a hurry. And to me, it's always about speed. So, you know, all roads lead to Rome. We all get there eventually. Spoiler alert, we're all free. We're all, you know, going to reign supreme in our own lives. And but in the meantime, creating some kind of speed is essential. And so once you see a shadow so specifically, because, you know, I knew I was stuck, but I didn't know what was sticking me. It was a big mystery. And it's the same with the people that I work with, that they come to me and it's a wall of stuckness. They know they can't do something they want to do. And then by working with the archetypes, it creates the precision that you need to be able to go in and like, oh, there it is. Take it out like a surgeon, right? There's the cancerous material. Let's just remove it. And there are techniques for that. It's not like surgery. It's not cutting out. Actually, it's just that's just a metaphor that came to mind.
Right.
It's more, yeah.
Right. You get to the root because, you know, and often that's the reason why, you know, things come back in our bodies. And again, this is symbology as well, but it's the root, because everything is there. It's coming from a root place. And so sometimes just trying to, you know, cut one thing out, you know, because you haven't really gotten to the heart and soul of its origin. But once you do, I always say it has tentacles. Like 500 other things are removed that you didn't even know were there. Mm-hmm. And that's the beauty of, I think, the work that you are doing with people. It's, you know, other things are leaving once they get to the source of some of these upsets or whatever they're facing.
Yeah, that's brilliant, because back to the cancer analogy, that how often is that when they cut out the cancer and then it grows back because of the tentacles.
Mm-hmm.
because of the roots. And that's why I'm a huge fan of deprogramming at the level of the unconscious. Because
Yes.
if you just try to deal with your problems on the surface, you might handle this issue, but you're probably going to find the same issue in new circumstances, right? So people in relationships, they get out of the one bad one, they go and they find the partner that's got all the same bad qualities, and they play that out again, not because they are lost, but because they haven't found the root of the issue yet.
Right, right. So they're running off the same program, and the brain looks for patterns. I often remind people, and so yeah, so we're
Nice.
we're just it's just looking for the familiar, and then it runs that program again, and then you're living the same life over and over and over. And I completely get that, even at a point where I didn't quite understand it that way. And, one of the things that I looked at is a point of really realizing that being done with a particular kind of relationship, you say to yourself, people go, oh, I'll never get into a relationship like that again. And to me, when I hear somebody saying that over and over, I never do that again, chances are they're going to do it again. So,
Exactly.
but it's when you get it, when there's something that happens in you where nothing need be said, it's just there's nothing there anymore for a resonance.
Exactly.
It's just that, and so it doesn't happen anymore. No need to keep saying it. You already know in you that no longer is a part of who you are.
Exactly. Yeah, you may hold the memories, but they don't have the charge that they
No.
did. They're not attracting energy. And when you said the patterns and looking for the familiar, I love to make this point because otherwise it can seem like, and I know you're not saying this, but it can seem like life is a sort of punishing thing, or God
Right.
is punishing you to give you all these bad experiences when you're in the shadow. And when you find the same relationship in the next situation, like, for example, I'm still working on the thing that I managed to survive that cancer, and I'm a healthy, strong person now, but I'm still working on exactly the same programming that I was 20, 30, 40, and 50 years ago, right? So
Layers.
this is layers, and also it is, I'm not, I am looking for freedom through these patterns. Freedom
Right.
is on the other side of my patterns. It means the patterns are freedom. They're just
Yes.
in disguise. We haven't seen the truth of it yet. And programs are entirely blinding. It is like unbelievable. I'm humbled every day by this because, in order to help anyone with this, I have to keep doing my work. And, otherwise I suffer too much, or I suffer for the wrong reasons if I don't do it. And I always come back to just seeing, that everything is rigged in our favor for our freedom.
Oh, absolutely. It's all messages. I mean, and that's basically, what you're conveying is realizing the information that's being handed to you through these patterns. And, what do you then do with that information? And you're using it to continue the transformation. And I like the fact that you also have reminded us that it's been ongoing, because I think many times, yes, people do want to think, okay, well, that's done, but we are in this continuous evolution or expansion, which is the name of the show. We're in this ongoing expansion, so there is no final moment of, okay, well, I'm done right now, I'm super enlightened. But it's these different these different layers, of change that's happening, freeing you more and more and more. So I love that you mentioned that as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it is ongoing, and that's the beautiful part of it. I, for better or for worse, I've got stories about my guru in India, but he was saying at one point, don't feel bad that your project is taking forever. God wants your projects to go on and on and on like this. So it's really good when you're not necessarily thinking of an endpoint anywhere other than this moment right now. What am I using this moment for? Is it for greater awakening or for going to sleep?
Right. And you know what? And this moment, once again, is crucial. Now we're talking about this moment in terms of the bigger picture of our world. is a moment that I've heard from so many people that even during the quarantine and all of this, that they've used it to grow. They've used it to really see themselves. They've used it to come up with ideas. I know people who are finally writing that book, or a screenplay, or just so many things. So it's all about how we choose to perceive what is going on. We can use it. We can take this moment and use it to expand our own lives.
Exactly. Yeah. And I think I didn't finish the story earlier that after I decided, I'm not going to lay down and die, I thought, okay, well, what could I create right now that would be relevant for this time, for people right now, and make use of my knowledge, my skills, and put me in a creative mode. Because as soon as you're in creative mode, you identify more with with creator than you do with the destruction and takedown and the dissolution of life as we knew it. And I had been thinking, yes, someday I will be training people to do what I do, to read archetypes, to help people deprogram, to release emotionally and spiritually, to help them find the value of their sacred purpose, to take their hero's journey. And I thought, like, what am I waiting for? This is the time now when people are losing their jobs, or, for example, I've got a client who is right now they're trying to force her. They're going through measures, and they're disciplining her with her job because she won't wear a mask. Well, what is she going to do now? Actually, maybe I won't say just for her privacy, just for the moment, but she's not going to take it. And so when I had this thought of, okay, what could I create? It's like, now I can just give myself permission. If all of those crazies out there are doing all of this nonsense to us and to the people, decimating our economy, next level, bringing harm to humanity, then I can, without anybody's permission, put this training program together. And I did it immediately. I went into high-speed creative mode. I became a happy person because I was creating. You could never convince me that I'm not free when I'm in creating mode. Yeah, so the Journey Code coaching certification was born very quickly. I instantly had a group that went through it. Now I'm starting my second group, and it is the most satisfying work I have ever done to pass on the skills of 20 years of coaching. Now I'm helping other people get there much faster.
Wonderful. Now, please be sure to let us know, how can people connect with you for coaching, for the book, anything that you would like the listening audience to know about what you have discussed today?
Yes, thank you. So if you visit bethmartens.com, as you spelled it, BETHMARTENS.com, you can, the first thing that you can do is sign up to do one of either the King Hero's Journey Archetype Quiz or the Merpreneur's Journey Archetype Quiz. And you find out right away, not just who you are, because you are all archetypes on the hero's journey. There's 8 of them as I've seen it and have revelations in my life. But you need to know where you are on the hero's journey. As soon as you can locate yourself, then you know what's behind you, you know what gold you may have left behind on your path, and you know what's your challenge right now, and you know what you're working towards ahead of you. So you locate yourself. You're no longer lost. And that's a big theme of my book as well. So that's a very easy one to pick up and get a window into my world. If your listeners are hearing this, I don't post this link, but I do have a secret link to a PDF for anybody that is just so down and out when it comes to finances. I wanted to make this work really accessible. I will send you that PDF for $5. But otherwise you can go and order the hard copy, and it comes along with an archetype study group, a series of audios that I provide for groups that I've done in the past, so you can get more context and the conversation around the archetypes. And that's at bethmartens.com. And then if you're interested, it's not too late to join in on the second round of the Journey Code coaching certification. if you're looking to replace income that's lost, or like my client who is now, needing to battle with the law around her job, and you don't want to have that fight, you just want to go off and do your own life's work, then this is a good opportunity to not only learn my skills, but to take the whole of your life's work and bring it forward in a coaching context, such as I from everything I've seen, Sonia, that you are doing. So that's everything there. There's also a free webinar on the hero's journey. So if you're not familiar with that archetype, it is the archetype of all archetypes. So not only are there the individual, the child, the rebel, the warrior, the nurturer, the lover, the hedonist, the king, and the alchemist, all of those are under the greater umbrella of the hero's journey, which every single human being is passing through. They're either avoiding it or they're working with it, but you're on it. And so there's a good webinar there that helps you to really get to the heart of what that hero's journey is.
I love it, because this is, people have been tossed into one heck of a level of the journey. Everybody has their own personal journey. But in this bigger picture of what's going on, it definitely is a unique journey for each person. And everything that's been said here today, I think everything you shared is so uplifting. And I think that everybody, regardless of where they are, I think can relate in some way to a lot of what's been said here today, and even the quote that I did earlier. But yeah, that's what we have to do. We have to look, see where we are, and Beth has a great coaching system and lots of great content actually on her website as well. What is that page on your website that I found really fascinating? Lots of it, all of it I found fascinating. But okay, where it says, learn your king hero archetype. And I love that, because the story, you talk a little bit about your father and the redemption project, and you kind of go through this whole process that I found very interesting.
Thank you. If there's a minute, I'd love to share about the King Hero's Journey podcast that with any luck, I'll be able to get you on, because you absolutely are living your King Hero's Journey.
Well, you have about 60 seconds. 60
seconds. So if you visit YouTube and type down Beth Martens, you'll find a series of many, many interviews with amazing people, mostly men. I want to hold men up because men are being crushed. I've spent most of my career holding women up. I'm still doing that. But I want to see the strong men get stronger, and those are very inspiring interviews. So definitely visit my YouTube if you can.
Oh, well, that was really quick. Yeah, I like that. I like what you said, because we do need that. There's been this divide that has really happened in terms of, male, female. It's gone on for a long time. But we definitely do need to step back and really look. And it's important to our lives as women as well, in many ways, in more ways than we actually think. It's really very significant to see that.
Exactly. Gender's been bent, and not just between men and women, but in ourselves. So the masculine and feminine archetypes are a big subject of my book, seeing how men and women go through that journey so differently, but it's the same journey and the same archetypes.
Oh, yes, absolutely. Wonderful. Wow. Well, we are there that quickly, man. We're going to do this again, people. We're definitely going to do this again, because we vibe really well. So thank you so much, Beth Martens, for being on the Expansion Zone. And I look forward to having you back. And
my great pleasure. Thank you, Sonia.
Thank you. And of course, to the listening audience, thank you as always for tuning in. Thanks to our engineer, D'Angelo Jones. And also, please do visit theexpansionzone.com for the archive for this show, for other shows that we've done, in the archive, and also Expansion Zone TV. And also subscribe to my YouTube channel as well. It really, really does help. And on Instagram and so on. To find out more about me, visit therealsoniabarrett.com. And as always, I remind you to live life to its fullest and question everything. Until next time, see you then.